Hi YouTube, this is Evie. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to my history of BDSM series. Earlier I talked about the history of BDSM in general and about pony play. If you'd like to watch those videos, I will link them down below. But today I'm going to be talking about the history of kitten play. I thought I knew what no information looked like when I was doing my video about pony play, and boy was I wrong. There is very little information out there about the history of kitten play, at least anything that's written down and recorded. So please keep that in mind while I'm doing this video. I'm also not a kitten player myself, so if I get something wrong, please leave that down in the comments below. I will happily rectify it in this video using annotations or something. But I hope you enjoy this anyways, and I will get right to it. So kitten play in its modern form is not really something that we see pop up until the late 1990s and early 2000s with the growth of the internet. Puppy play and pony play each already have their own dedicated online communities in addition to physical communities and gatherings. But kitten play doesn't really have anything like that. We don't see any gathering place for kittens at all until little Skylark creates kittenplay.net in the mid 2000s. And this isn't to say that kitten play didn't exist up until this point. It was just something that probably occurred sporadically with individuals, but there wasn't really any gathering place, whether that be physically or online, for kittens. Now, according to Little Skylark, she says that her main inspiration for kitten play and why modern kitten play has evolved the way it has is because of the presence of Nico girls or Nico Mimi in anime and manga from Japan. I'm not really entirely sure how much I buy into the idea that modern kitten play is directly descended from Kinono Mimi in Japan. To me, that does make some sense, but it doesn't really explain the whole picture. For example, you have things in other popular media at the time, like the Batman series featuring Catwoman, and I think that also makes up for a large part of the appeal of kitten play as we saw it early on. And something that's really interesting about kitten play in terms of how it has evolved is that earlier on in like the mid 2000s, it was almost part of the latex community. Your usual stereotypical kitten was somebody dressed in full latex gear, a mask, and latex ears. And you can still see this today. A lot of people who make latex still produce latex gloves for kittens, latex ears, things like that. And this makes an interesting counterpoint to what you see in modern kitten play today, which is usually faux fur ears, some sort of ribbon collar, and a faux fur tail. Now, why that has evolved the way it is a different question entirely. I think that does really have a lot to do with the presence of Little Skylark and her later creation of the Chateau, which is an online website slash modern gallery slash magazine featuring kitten girls in gear. And at the time, again, if they were borrowing from Nico Mimi rather than from the latex community, you really went with the faux fur ears and tail, which usually came from places like eBay in China. You didn't have any sort of the gear shops like you see today until much later. And when Little Skylark created this website, when she created the chateau, things just exploded. There were so many people who were interested in kitten play, either because they were interested in pet play and didn't really feel like ponies or like puppies, or just because they found the idea appealing in general or just happened upon it on the internet. And from there, kitten play really started to grow. You had places like Tumblr pop up, you had places like FetLife before it, and there were entire communities, tags, groups, whatever, that were dedicated just to kitten play. And through the growth of these groups, through the growth of the popularity in kitten play, you start to see people who are dedicating their artistic abilities to creating gear for other kittens and for other members of the community. Kitten Sightings is definitely one of the originators of this, and they still do great work to this day. And at the time, there was really not a lot of options for kitten as far as gear goes. There was Kitten Cream, there was Kitten Sightings, later there was Lunar. There were only maybe really a handful of shops. It wasn't until maybe a year or two ago, in 2015, 2014 maybe, when kitten play gear as a commodity started to explode on places like Etsy. And again, I can't get through a history of kitten play video without talking about the one and only Scream Kiwi. Now, like Little Skylark, she is definitely a popular figure in kitten play, and a lot of kittens, especially in the last 2 or 3 years, are in kitten play because of the presence of people like Scream Kiwi, who made sort of the original videos on YouTube talking about the subject. And that's really where modern kitten play is today. Now, interestingly enough, there's still no physical community that's associated with kitten play. You have places like the chateau, but those are more like exclusive clubs for kittens than any sort of real gathering point. Pony play and puppy play, before they started on the internet, had physical communities, whereas kitten play started on the internet itself. With pony play, you have ponies that will gather together for things like barrel runs, races, competitions, cart pulling, things like that. And then with puppy play, you have puppies that will come together for play dates, agility trials, competitions, all sorts of things. And kitten play doesn't have anything like that. There's not really anything that's exclusively for kittens that exists physically. And that's really all there is to it. I'm sorry there's not really more to talk about in this video. I'm sure it'll probably end up being pretty short, but Kid Play is still growing. It's still making history for itself right now. So who knows? Maybe in 5 and 10 years I'll be able to make a much more involved video about this, and I'm really just excited to see where it all ends up. If you have any questions, please leave them down below. Next week I'm going to be doing my video on puppy play and probably start on a few other topics. I'm sort of tossing around a few ideas for my next little BDSM mini series. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up, like, subscribe if you want to, and I will see you next week. Bye bye.